Welcome back, everyone, to Speedrunners and Coffee. With me, I have probably the longest running speedrunner we've ever had on the show. They have ran Castlevania Symphony of the Night. They have ran Kirby's Dream Land, Mario Kart Double Dash, Tales of Fantasia, Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy X, Wild Arms 4, the Crash Trilogy, and the Spyro Trilogy, just to name a few. The very lovely Varin. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I am good. Thank you for coming on the show. I look forward to finding out about your speedrun history as you've been running since like 2014, which is incredible. I don't know too many runners that have been running for like 10 years almost. It's absolutely incredible. So, what got you into speedrunning?
I found speedrunning through a friend I had on Facebook. And when I got into speedrunning in 2013, I was just a 17-year-old kid who loved to mess around the internet, as most gremlin teenagers like to. And they posted a picture of their copy of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And it was a game I grew up in my childhood loving. And there were people in the comment section who were talking about speedruns of it. And I was like, what is that? Is that like going fast in the game? I want to play the game very fast because I've played the game hundreds and hundreds of times. And so I kind of just looked up what speedrunning was, and I saw some runs on YouTube, and I found Speed Demos Archive, and I just kind of got hooked afterwards. Even though Symphony of the Night was not my first speedrun, it was actually probably a year or so after I started speedrunning that I actually speedrun Symphony of the Night. But Symphony of the Night was my first exposure to speedrunning through people on Facebook that I just randomly met on the internet, which, maybe my parents should have been watching my internet history a little closer. I don't know, but it's got me where I am today. So
Very nice. So, what was your first speed game and why did you start with that?
my first speed game was Kirby's Dream Land, and I started with it because in ye olden days of 2013, there was still a lot of restrictions on places like SDA, and then eventually in 2014 when Speedrunner.com started, that a lot of communities wanted people to play on real hardware because there wasn't a lot of science behind finding out the accuracy of emulators to consoles, or at least it wasn't a very studied science as it is now. And it was one of the only things that I had the hardware for, which was a Game Boy Color and a copy of Kirby's Dream Land, as my childhood copy, that I could actually get within an angle of my phone to record a video of it with the timer going and actually record me playing the game. It was I didn't have money for a capture card. I was like freaking 17, and in still in high school waiting to graduate and go to college. I didn't have money for a capture card, which were a lot harder to get than they are now. So it was just really around and accessible, easy to capture with a phone camera versus a honkin' TV to do anything like Symphony of the Night or any of the Crash games or anything like that.
Yes, I remember getting a Hauppauge HD PVR 2 in 2012. I don't even think Elgato was a thing in 2012 yet. I
I don't
think
think so, no.
AverMedia was a thing. I think it was between Hauppauge and AverMedia at the time, and they were very limiting. And at least they had the ability to do component and composite. I
Yeah.
wish, those would kind of still be a thing. Cough, cough, Elgato and friends.
Yeah, Elgato, if you're listening to this, hook us up.
Yeah, hook us back up instead of like having to try to find capture cards from like 10 years ago. It'd
God.
be really nice.
Yeah.
So with Castlevania Symphony of the Night, is this the Xbox version that you would eventually speedrun, or is this the PS1 version?
The PS1 version. So I had an Xbox when I was a little bit younger. Used to work in I guess work is kind of like a loose term. It's more like an apprenticeship really in a console and small electronics repair shop. So I had fixed the Xbox and got to take home because they weren't going to sell it. It was a really old Xbox. And I don't know what happened to it. I don't know if I lost it in a move or what happened to it, and I didn't have it because that was the best version, is the Xbox Live version, or Xbox Live Arcade version. It was the best version to speedrun. It had the fastest load times. Xboxes are more compatible with arcade sticks, which was back then the more preferred way to play it if you're going to play it a lot, at least from the people that I interacted with. But eventually, no, I ran the PS1 version with my childhood copy of Symphony of the Night, which I ran into the ground and had to replace eventually because I played it so much. The
I almost
PS1
forgot to
version
ask
is
if you did the Saturn version.
Oh, the Saturn version is a completely different beast, and if I had had a Saturn, I probably would have. But the Saturn version of Symphony of the Night plays quite a bit different, and there's an extra section of the game, if I'm not mistaken, that's different from the PAL/NA version of Symphony of the Night. So I
I'm
don't really
trying
know
to
how much
remember because
different.
I had the Saturn version about 10 years ago.
Yeah, there's like there's the different playable characters too, because you can play as Maria and Richter in that one, I believe.
Yeah.
As like their own like standalone completable characters, which is a little bit
Yeah.
different than what it is in the NA and PAL PS1 version, as far as I'm aware. Because I think I honestly emulated the Saturn version once or twice, and just like I was kind of sick of Symphony of the Night at that time, so this is like good. Didn't really get into it very much.
Yeah. So with going back to Kirby's Dream Land here for a second, was there an initial goal for you with the run?
No, I just kind of wanted to see if I could do it. It was kind of one of those that like I was very interested in speedrunning, and I like consumed a lot of content, which was like creators I interacted with back in the day, or like watching like stuff like GDQ or whatever. But I never had done one yet, and I think it was probably like probably 5 to 6 months after I discovered what speedrunning was. Finally sat down and like quote did a run end quote. And it was really just to see if I could do it. If it was as hard as I like my anxiety was making it out to be, like, oh, what if this isn't for me and I just don't have the talent for this or whatever. I basically wanted to beat it in under 30 minutes, and I think the first time I ever did it, it was like well over 30 minutes. It was like 35 to 40 minutes because I hadn't played the game in such a long time that I couldn't remember anything. And so I just sat down with it and I just did it, and I went, wow, that was awful. And then I just did it several more times over the following weeks, and I think eventually got it under 30 minutes. It was probably like closer to like 25. But I didn't have a real goal in the game until I think maybe a year after I started running it. I really was gunning for like consistent sub 18s, which was like my peak point, just because like I just didn't understand how to do the movement very well, and there's tech I just didn't understand and didn't know until I watched other people's runs. And then yeah, I think sub 18 was my first big goal with Kirby's Dream Land.
That's fair. Now, you've ran a lot of games, but was there or is there a game you regret running or a game that you had wish you continued to learn?
That's a great question. I think the run I regret starting the most is honestly, I think Mega Man X4. Simply because I learned it and I wanted to impress my mom because Mega Man X4 was her favorite Mega Man game when I was growing up, and it was one of the only ones that we had. So when I learned the speed run for it and just like learned all the cool tech and stuff, I sat my mom down. I was like, I have something really cool to show you, and I booted the game up and I did it and I showed her, and she was just like, well, that was kind of cool. So what did you just do? And I kind of felt I just kind of felt a little silly maybe. And I attempted to get better and better times over a year or two after I learned the game. But I really just found myself burnt out on it. I feel like I probably just played it a little too much, and it just didn't feel like I accomplished anything I wanted to accomplish with it, and I just feel like I ruined a childhood game for myself, which every once in a while I do find myself finding the itch to go back and play it. But then I get about halfway through a run, and then I'm just like, now I remember why I stopped playing this. I like platformers to some extent because I also do obviously Symphony of the Night, but Crash Bandicoot 1 to 3 and Spyro 1 to 3. So like I like platforming to some extent. It just didn't fulfill what I wanted it to fulfill, and I spent way too long in the game, like way too long. For games that I wish I had continued running, I actually kind of wish I had put more time into learning Mario Kart Double Dash. I pretty much learned a couple of characters, and I learned a couple of like tech tricks kind of. And as much as I liked running it, I kind of found when I was running it in 2018, I kind of found my love for speed running racing games waning, and I didn't really run as many racing games anymore. And I kind of wish I had kept up on it because it's a really cool game and it's really fun, and the community is pretty nice. I met a couple of really cool people through speedrunning that game, and I kind of wish I had always continued it.
Very nice. Now, how do you decide slash or like what goes into your decision making when picking a game to run?
I would say mostly probably just, have I played the game before and did I like it, and do I want to ruin it for myself? Because the thing about speedrunning is if you want to have a goal for a time or you want to learn a lot about it, you're going to spend a lot of time playing it. And I have to think ahead of time, like, how many hours do I want to put into this game to feel like I've accomplished something? And I'm not a person who submits a lot to leaderboards, because if you go and look on speedrun.com, I only have like 4 submitted runs ever since I made my account in 2015. Mostly because I'm not a leaderboard person. So to me, it's basically like I find a goal I want to hit, or I find a game that I just find really fascinating that I want to submit to an event or something. And I think, yo, do I want to spend countless hours playing this game or no? And a lot of the games I run are actually childhood favorites of mine. There are probably a few runs that I've done over the years that I've honestly just forgotten to list on here, or on the list I gave you. But I think for old games, it has to be like a childhood favorite that I know really well, or it has to be a new game that like a bunch of my friends are also running, so I feel very motivated to learn it alongside other people and spend a lot of time on it.
Are there any games you're currently looking forward to running, whether they're out now or coming out in the future?
I really think I want to continue learning more of the Final Fantasy games. I realized one that I forgot to list on here is also Final Fantasy 5, so I do 5, 8, and 10. I want to continue learning more of the Final Fantasy series. I think also I just want to learn more RPG runs in general. I want to finish learning Bait and Kaitos 100%, and it's a huge meme, and I know that it is a ridiculously long speed run. But I bought the game from a friend a couple years ago, and because I have a GameCube and I wanted to learn to run it. I think if there are any new games that are coming out that I really want to learn, I think I want to get over my fear of learning a new longer Zelda game, because I wanted to learn Breath of the Wild when it came out, and then I kind of realized I didn't want to ruin it for myself. So I think when Tears of the Kingdom comes out, I think I want to learn that like really bad. It looks like a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun with Breath of the Wild, so I think that it'll be a really good speed game to learn, especially since I know that there's lots of people around me who are also going to be learning it. So it'll keep me motivated to do so.
Very good. Another Zelda runner to join us.
I already run a Zelda game. I do Link's
Okay,
Awakening. I also
a
do Orphan Seasons, which
3D
like my list is not
Zelda.
complete. I'm sorry. Yeah, 3D Zelda. Well, okay. I don't speedrun Ocarina of Time. I play a lot of randomizer, like a lot of randomizer, but I do not speedrun a 3D Zelda game, unfortunately. No.
Yes. Also, you mentioned Bait and Kaido. Any Xenoblade plans?
I this feels like an interrogation now. I just feel like Picole's just gonna pop out of nowhere and be like Xenoblade. I heard Xenoblade. Maybe eventually. I'm gonna be like 100% real. I like the game very casually. I like playing it. I played all the Xenoblade games. I've played every Xenosaga game. I'm a big fan of Xenosaga and Xenogears and Xenoblade. But I don't know if I like it as a speedrun. Its game style appeals to me. Like, I want to sit on my couch and I want to run around with my big titty anime girls and big swords and whack stuff, and it doesn't feel to me like it's my kind of speedrun material. Maybe if I learn something like Torna, which is I feel like small enough that I'm not running through an entire game, just running through DLC. But unfortunately, I cannot say that I have any plans anytime soon to run a Xenoblade game. No.
Torna is a rough speed run. I will say that. I run two and NG plus, so
Yeah.
and then I looked into doing Torna NG plus, and it's like, oh, I still have to do this really annoying thing. Well, damn it.
Yeah.
And so Torna's kind of been on the back burner for a long time. Is there a game that you love that you would never run that's not Xenoblade? Because I know you just said Xenoblade.
That's honestly, I've run into a lot of those roadblocks over the years where like I have a game, like especially a childhood game that I love, that I was like, I'm never gonna run. Like Wild Arms 4 was one of those. I was like, I love the game casually. I've probably put like over 1,000 hours into it casually, just playing it again and again and again. And I always told myself I was never gonna speedrun it. And then I found out there's not a lot of runners for it, and the other Wild Arms games were popular, so I ended up running it. But I really can't think of anything immediately off the top of my my head that I've ever looked at and been like, I can never run this. I can never ruin it for myself, because to me, either a game is going to be my kind of like speedrun taste or it's not. And usually if it's a game that I say that I play that I'm like, I'm not going to speedrun, it's just because it's just not my kind of game. Like, I think actually I take that back. So I have one. I just like vaguely recall this conversation. So I love puzzle games. I love stuff like The Witness and Talos Principle and Portal and whatnot. And I know I have a friend who speedruns the Talos Principle, and I bought the game because I saw him speedrunning it and I saw it was a puzzle game and I was like, I love this game. And I played through it and I got to the end of it and I told my friend, like, hey, I finished Talos Principle. And they were like, great, when are you gonna learn it? And I said, never. I'm not gonna learn this game because I don't want to ruin the love and the magic of the puzzles. Like, I think that once I would start learning the game, I think it would lose a lot of the novelty, which I think is my problem with having learned like Mega Man X4. Is I wore off a lot of the novelty for myself by speedrunning the game. So I think if I had to like I absolutely definitively say that there was ever a game I looked at and I did not want to speedrun, it would be Talos Principle. And I just drudged that up from the depths of my memory because I watched my friend run that in like 2016. I like just thought about that being like, no Talos Principle. And I also will not speedrun The Witness by proxy because I do not want to ruin the like allure of the puzzles.
That is very fair. Now, how do you stop yourself from burning out of speedrunning?
I just don't speedrun for long periods of time. So I've been speedrunning for 10 years. It'll be 10 years in May, I believe. So it's one of those that like if I just don't want to speedrun, I just don't. And that's something I had to learn over the years. I used to have a problem with burnout. I used to play things like Symphony of the Night, Mega Man X4, Wild Arms 4. I used to have a really bad burnout problem with Final Fantasy VIII, where I just got so sick of playing it, but I wanted a better time so bad, so that was all I would do. And then I just got to the point where I just didn't want to play the games. I wouldn't play them for years. I don't think I've sat down and done a speedrun of Symphony of the Night since like 2018 or 2019. It has been many years. So I just don't play it. And that might seem like a cop-out answer, but I've over the years as I've grown up, I've learned that if I just don't want to do something and something doesn't make me feel good, I just don't do it because it's not worth the agonizing and the anxiety and the like the inner turmoil it gives me by forcing myself to continue to play a game and do something I don't want to do.
That is completely fair. Now, you have been speedrunning for 10 years. Do you have any influences in the speedrun world?
Like things I influence or like have influenced,
Like
or
people that influenced you as a runner?
Yeah, probably several. So funny enough, Dragon Blitz just did Symphony of the Night at HGQ 2023 this past week, and he was one of the people that when I first started taking Symphony of the Night seriously, that I watched a lot. I also watched a lot of Rom Scout. When I wanted to do Lament of Innocence, which I did before Symphony of the Night, I watched Dragon Darch. I actually still have one of his Leon any percent runs that he submitted to Speed Demo's archive. I still have it on my watch later list on YouTube from 10 years ago. I still have it there because I used to reference it all the time when I was learning the run. I think there are other I'm trying to think of like other people that I think particularly influenced me to do things. I wasn't a big fan of randomizers or really what to do with them until my friend Odster played a lot of them. He's very good at Super Metroid ROM hacks and randomizers and does a lot of like a Link to the Past randomizer and stuff. And his exposure or him exposing me to those games got me into those, which by proxy led me to meet other people, which influenced me to do runs like Final Fantasy X, Mega Man X6, Mario Kart Double Dash. Trying to think of like other games that I've ran that I think people really pushed me into doing. I think those are really the only people I can think of off the top of my head. Because I've been speedrunning for so long, a lot of the people that I can even think of that like encouraged me to do any of the games like just don't speedrun anymore. Like I just don't remember them because it's been so long. But yeah, I think those are really the people I can think of off the top of my head that like stick out to me that like I still have some amount of interaction with, or I still watch Dragon Blitz's content like almost every day because I just love the way he plays Symphony of the Night. So I think that's part of the reason why I remember him and Rom Scout so well, because I watch a lot of their content.
That is quite fair. Now, this show is called Speedrunners and Coffee. So, of course, what is your favorite coffee?
I don't have a particular like specific one that's like my favorite. I like really really dark roast. Like the roast must be like darker than the abyss, and I don't do like cream or sugar or anything. I just want to drink it by itself. And I think that's part of the reason why I like dark roast, because they usually have like a very bold and robust flavor and can stand on their own versus like light morning blends or like what do you call them, like morning blends of coffee. I don't like a lot of those just black because they don't have a lot of flavor that stands to them. So if it's anything that's like an extremely dark roast or anything that says it has like a chocolatey undertone to it, I'm game. I will drink an entire pot of it, even though I really shouldn't because I have health issues that say I should not drink coffee at all. But if I were to drink coffee, I definitely dark roast is my go-to.
Very nice. I would like to convert you to the cult of Coke coffees. They have a dark roast Coke coffee. It's basically a can of Coke, but it's half
But
the
it tastes like
calories.
coffee.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's Coke and coffee together, and it's fantastic.
Which is funny. I believe in that conversation in the Lady Arcader server about the Coke coffee. I do believe I'm the one who linked the sugar-free version because those are the ones I drink. I still also cannot drink many of those, but they are very good. Like they have the dark one, but they also have the like just the vanilla one is really good. The sugar-free one
Okay, I
is
haven't
pretty
found
good.
the sugar-free ones in Canada, and apparently there's also a caramel one that I've never seen in Canada. The vanilla one tastes like vanilla Coke to me, but the dark roast you can actually kind of still taste coffee, so it's like,
Yeah, the coffee.
yes.
The sugar-free ones or like the zero sugar ones or whatever fancy way they have of calling soda without the diet soda nowadays. I don't know anymore.
Coke Zero.
Yeah,
I can
sure. The
actually
whatever
I can actually give you a fun fact about that and why there's a Diet Coke or Diet Pepsi and a Zero/Max version. Diet Coke is supposed to be for women. Zero/Pepsi Max is supposed to be for men.
Oh, that explains why I like the zero sugar everything like styling better than I do the diet whatever. I don't yeah, like
Yeah.
whatever zero sugar version of something they have is usually the if I were to get soda, that's usually what I have, but the zero sugar version of the vanilla coffee Coke, it tastes like Coke in a latte and it's actually really good because it's not overly sweet, which the regular
Hmm.
ones I find to be overbearingly sweet. I do actually like I can't even drink a whole one of them. So I tried one once. I was like, ugh, it just tastes like drinking syrup. It was very gross.
Oh no.
But the zero sugar ones are very good. I like those. So if you find those, if they ever bring those to Canada, you definitely should try them. They're a lot less sweet and they taste a lot more like coffee.
For all I know, they could be hiding somewhere and it's just staring me in the face. And perhaps maybe once my move is over and I'm living in the largest city in the country, it'll be like, oh, they're sitting right here because it has everything. Because giant cities do that.
Honestly, quite possibly, yeah.
Yeah. What is your opinion, getting back into speedrun stuff here, on IGT versus RTA?
I have so many hot takes about timing for games. It's not even funny. So, I mean, obviously, I keep referencing this. I've been doing this for 10 years. So, I have seen every argument and I've seen the rise and fall of different things like IGT versus like RTA. I believe each has their own merit in which they're the more viable option for a game versus another. And it basically boils down to how accurate the in-game time is for the game and the popularity of the run. So like things like Celeste, they run a lot by they have RTA, but they also have like IGT, and the IGT tends to be a lot more synced across like all the different versions and all the different like the hacks or maps or whatever versus like hoping somebody hit the start and end on a timer correctly, or if there's an auto splitter for a game or whatever. So like a lot of the times that there aren't auto splitters for games, the IGT tends to be a little more accurate, especially for like PC runs. Now, then you get into IGT for console things, in which we all know the science behind looking into emulators and consoles now is that like, especially for back in the Xbox 360 and the PS2 and PS3 days, there's a lot of load differences between the different kinds of consoles. So like the IGT can be varying depending on the load time of the console and how the IGT in the game actually functions. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the accessibility of timers is also a lot better now than it used to be. Whereas like a lot of people had to find a way to record a game and run a timer and do all this, that, and the other with the hardware on their in front of them on top of whatever was on their computer and starting and stopping a timer and then having to retime runs. things like that, that like I feel like we have better tools, especially in the form of auto splitters now, at least for PC games, for things like live split, if you so choose to use live split, that RTA still does have a large standing, but I guess all of this almost almost ancient person rambling to say that they both have their own merit, and depending on the game and the community, they both serve their purposes well, as long as it is clearly defined how the IGT is used, and that there is a way to validate that it is fair across all users who are using IGT, and also for RTA, making sure going and retiming runs from the actual start and actual end, or using like an auto splitter that works for everybody, and or auto splitters that like pause the timer when you're not running. So like my partner speed runs A Hat in Time, and the timer does not run while they're like on the load screens. It pauses and then starts again when they gain control of their character. So like maybe RTA for their timer that only counts like when they're controlling in the game or something. It just depends. I don't think one is vastly superior than the other at all. The only thing I think I think the only thing I've ever really gotten in a fight about IGT and RTA is when J RTA was a thing, like, or not, okay, it's still a thing, it's never gone away, but it's basically where you start the timer when the console is on, and you don't start the ending, or you don't stop the timer until the end of the credits of the game, or whatever like the massive end goal is. It depends on if there's credits after the game or not. Whereas I found that very tedious to time every time I reset my console and started the game from the menu. I found that to be like incredibly tedious, especially when it was factoring in like making a character selection, or like inputting menu stuff in RPG that a lot of RPGs like traditionally cut out until you like gain control of the character or whatever. That's the only timing that I'm just kind of like, if somebody says that they want JRTA, I'm just like, I don't know about that one, brother. I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna do not that.
This is the first time I've ever heard of JRTA.
It was very popular in the Japanese speedrunning community, especially with RPGs, which tend to be very popular over there from my Japanese runner friends that I know and have known for a long time. It's kind of like it's not as a popular thing now, but especially for RPGs, and especially since I speedrun several RPGs, that was kind of like, if you wanted to do it right, you just basically did it from like console on, and you started your timer when the console turned on, and it like factored in all the load times and all the like menuing and like character creation stuff, and then like you stopped the timer after the credits stopped rolling. Like when the credits were done, that was when you split. And that was like the entire game. It was like your entire play session is what it was like timing. And I always found it kind of strange. I understood a large part of the reason why to some degree, like back in the day, but now I just kind of feel like it's kind of not needed. Especially with like different console load times and things, I just it's very tedious, and I would just rather not have to like sweaty menuing extra than I need to, which is already hard in RPGs. Honestly, menuing is probably the hardest part.
That is quite fair. Where do you see yourself in 5 years in terms of speedrunning?
That is a question I ask myself all the time. I'm not quite sure. I find myself every once in a while kind of burnt out on speedrunning. I've been speedrunning for 10 years, but I've been organizing marathons for almost as long. I first started helping organize speedrunning marathons in late 2013 into early 2014, and attended my first in-person event in October of 2014. So I've been doing this for a very long time, and very time consuming. I hope to continue to find myself working with speedrunning events. I think it's part of what's kept me speedrunning for so long also, is I've met so many amazing people, and I've gotten to do so many amazing things and help so many charities and so many groups, and I've even done like fundraisers to help friends after like some life thing happens and they just need help. And whether, I can't say with certainty where I'll be in speedrunning in 5 years, but I hope to continue to make a positive impact on the communities I'm in, and continue to help foster great communities and keep doing the things I've been doing charity wise, because I think that's probably some of the best things that have come out of speedrunning, is continuing to build friendships and continuing to build great communities.
Very nice. Are there any games you're currently playing, either speedrunning or casually?
All right, I do not want to talk about my 3,500 hours in Final Fantasy 14. I have a problem. I play a lot of 14. I actually hope to speedrun certain parts of 14 eventually. Whether it's continuing to do Deep Dungeon, Palace of the Dead, or Heaven on High, or it is doing things like speedrunning some of the ultimate raids, which are the hardest raids in the game. I'm not sure where I'm going to go with that. I also want to finish learning Dust Gambit. It's a game I started learning last year. I still play it casually because it had DLC come out last year also. But I hope to continue playing 14 casually, eventually speedrunning 14, and then finish learning Death's Gambit. It's a very fun game, and I'm very excited to also learn the DLC as a run.
Nice. What would you say is your proudest and lowest moments as a runner?
As a runner, I think proudest is probably going to be when I submitted to Fright Fatales last year. I kind of got over the hurdle of like not wanting to put myself into big events and not really wanting to submit to events. I've submitted here and there to like smaller speedrunning events and done runs here and there in front of friends, but I've never been much of a performer. It's mostly always been about other people and not myself. And I kind of overcame that hurdle and submitted it, and it was a hit. People really liked it, and people have been asking me about the game. And I even was able to get it into Frosted House this year, 2023, because people liked it. I was asked to submit it, and it got in. And to me, like I've never had people like my runs enough that people request that I do something. So I feel like that's been a real pivoting point for me, especially coming from the days of speedrunning was not always a great community 10 years ago. So I think one of my proudest moments is being able to not only overcome my like stigma and fear of submitting runs and doing them in front of people, but also like knowing that people like my runs enough to want to watch them and want me to submit to things. I think lowest. Okay, this is a really funny one. So one of the speedrunning events I used to be staff on, I submitted a run to. I submitted 2 runs to, which was Kirby Streamland and Mega Man X4. So I did Mega Man X4 first, and then I did Kirby Streamland later in the event. And I completely beefed it. I did not finish the run. I had to DNF. I had to do not finish because I didn't practice very much because I was kind of busy running the event, and I had to drive 4 hours to get there in the first place. So I lived 4 hours away from where we held the event at a venue. And my parents were watching. So we were raising money for yeah, my parents are watching. So we were raising money for a charity that affects me and my roommate, one of my best friends. And because my brother and several of their siblings have the disease that we were raising money for the foundation for. And so my parents were obviously like very interested, and I had been doing this for several years at this point. This was in 2016, 2017. This might have been 2017. I'd have to go back and look at the VODs. It's been a long time. So I've been speedrunning for a couple years at this point, like 3 or 4 years at this point. So my parents knew what it was. I did the X4 run in front of my mom. My mom was like, okay, well, I'll watch it. My dad was in the chat. He like made a Twitch account so he could like say silly things about me in chat. So my parents were, for the first time in a long time, very supportive of something I was doing and actually paid attention to me. And so I was doing the run. I was so freaking nervous. I hadn't practiced very much, and I was so busy running the event and driving to the event and just running everything because I've always been like the production / tech person, so anytime anything went wrong I had to fix it, and I was pretty much on call the entire event. And I just beefed it. I completely beefed it. I was just like, all right guys, I'm just not gonna finish. Thanks for having me, it's been a good one. I just got up and like turned and reset the console, and we cut to intermission. I was just like trying not to cry so bad, and I felt really bad about it because I had spent a lot of time the like couple weeks prior practicing, but just so much stuff coming up with the event and like my IRL stuff and my job that I just wasn't able to continue to practice up until then. And I felt comfortable enough with the run I was doing that I thought I could do it, and the anxiety got the better of me. I just completely beefed it. Which
that sucks.
It's funny to look back on it now. When it first happened, I was pretty upset about it, but looking back on it now, it's a low moment as a runner, not because I feel ashamed of it. I definitely don't feel ashamed. I don't feel ashamed about it, but it's that I know how to not only better manage my time, but also like I'm part of events that are very good about making sure people aren't overworked, and that was kind of the problem, was that I was extremely overworked back then. So I have better methods now to not only make sure I practice for things, but that I'm not working alone and that I'm not going to put myself in that kind of situation again where I don't have time to practice or I feel unprepared. That and like my parents have watched me do tons of other speed runs like at their own house, or like they're like, it's kind of like, do a magic trick, Varin, do a speed run. And like, I've had better chances to prove myself to my family, so I definitely don't feel ashamed about it. But it definitely is not. It's definitely not a highlight of my speedrunning career by far.
That is fair. Is there a skip you wish was in a game you run?
I'm trying to think if there's anything in particular that's lacking in any of the games that I run that I kind of wish would make them easier. I think for stuff like Final Fantasy VIII, I wish I had worked harder and it helped find more cutscene skip stuff. There used to be a theory back in the day that I was looking into. I spent a lot of time working on this. So Final Fantasy VIII is a 4-disc game, and for the disc to load the next part and read things from the RAM, it needs to be able to have played a previous FMV from the disc, and it reads them in a particular order. So when the game tells the console, it's like, hey, we're at this part and do this next thing, it basically checks that the FMVs have been played and what order they've been played in. And we used to be theory crafting something where we were trying to skip a certain part near the end of disc 2 and go straight to the middle of disc 3 with a cutscene skip, because there's like a ridiculously long cutscene with the FMV from disc 2 into disc 3, but there was parts of disc 3 that we were trying to skip and just forego. Like it would have, if I'm not mistaken, it would have cut like 2 hours from the run. Maybe a little less than that. But there was just a bunch of theory crafting around it, and nothing really ever came out of it, because trying to manipulate the game to not load the FMV in that right order and switching out the disc at the right times to have the correct FMV load was just, it was a lot of work that just wasn't turning out right. So I kind of wish we had cutscene skips in Final Fantasy VIII, or at least more viable, like reliable cutscene skips for the console version of Final Fantasy VIII. I don't actually know a lot about the PC version. I assume that there's like a fast forward mod or a cutscene remover, just like there is one for 10 now. At least I assume is the case, because I don't follow Final Fantasy VIII PC running. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
I wish
couldn't
there
help
was.
you with remaster or anything like that either.
Yeah, the I don't think there's anything for the remaster either. I'm not quite sure. I wanted to run the remaster on Switch, just because it was easy and I had a capture card for my Switch, but I never really got around to doing it. I never derusted 8 enough to want to do it. Just was still
Yeah.
kind of burnt out on it from years of running it and working on it. Yeah, I think that'd be my answer, is like I wish we had like cutscene manipulation skips in 8, because I would really like to cut out large chunks of the games by just being able to like skip and jump to places we needed to without having to make the cutscenes load and do the things that need to happen.
Very fair. If you could create a game from an entirely different genre and add it to your favorite series, what genre of game would you add?
Um, I think I would want to do like a deep open world like Castlevania game in the style of like Breath of the Wild. Honestly, like an open RPG adventure kind of like freestanding play kind of thing, because there's a lot of lore in the Castlevania series that is not evident by many of the games in the series, because some of them link together and some of them don't. But the actual timeline of where the Castlevania games fall in the actual like Belmont timeline is really cool. And part of the reason why Lamented Innocence is my favorite Castlevania game, because he's the first Belmont and kind of tells, Leon is the first Belmont, and he tells, it gives a little glimpse into why the Belmonts are vampire hunters. So I think that like having like an open world thing where they like go to different castles, or they go to different areas in the Castlevania universe or whatever, and we're able to fight the different monsters and find out different things about the different people, even if it was like a time traveling kind of version of it, I think that'd be really cool. I don't think I'd speedrun it, but I would have a lot of fun doing it. Like, I think that'd be really cool.
Very fair. And would the final boss be like Dracula again or something? Or like.
I think do you care if I spoil Laments of Innocence for you? I don't know if you ever plan to play it, but
I'm good. You can spoil it because I
okay.
love spoilers.
So the story of Laments of Innocence follows Leon. His fiance is killed, or is eventually killed by him to become the vampire killer to kill Walter, who is supposed to be the final boss. The final boss of Laments of Innocence is actually Death. Death is the one pulling the strings, trying to do some funky vampire shenanigans. I think Death would be the final boss. Like
Okay.
everyone thinks it's always like Dracula because like in like Super Castlevania and Castlevania 64 and even in Limits of Innocence, you fight Dracula. You fight Death somewhere in Symphony of the Night, and you fight Shaft before you get to Dracula, but like it's always Dracula
Yeah.
as like the big final bad guy. But I think Death would be the final boss. I think you would go through a lot of crap and you'd be like, you're gonna go defeat Dracula in the castle, and then you defeat Dracula, and then next thing you know, like everything turns like pitch black and Death sucks you down, and he's like, how dare you ruin my plans to encapsulate the humans
Yeah.
by slaving them to vampires or whatever, and something like that. Because I always, when I played Lament of Innocence the first time, I had a lot of trouble with Walter, and I finally defeated him, and I was like, yes, let's go. I beat the game. And then Death shows up and he's like, you gotta fight me now. And it's a two-part final battle. And it was so tough for me as a kid to play that. I think that would be a really cool like final twist to it. It's like you defeat Dracula and you go through all of his lackeys, but really it was Death all along.
See, it's funny that you mentioned the death thing because that's kind of how the series went, the Netflix series, because Death was the final nail in the coffin, if you will, because he was like, I'm trying to fucking bring him back so I can have more death around here. And it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's always been Death's ultimate goal, and even when you
yeah.
fight him in Symphony of the Night, he's just kind of like, you meddling kid, always ruining my plans."
Yeah. And at the beginning he's like, I must demand that you cease your attack.
I
Then
shall not.
you leave me no choice. Throws all your weapons away.
Yeah, and steals all your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So do you have any event rituals?
Event rituals, like things I do like before or after or during events, or like
Yeah, yeah.
okay, so like I think from the perspective of a runner, I think I mostly just like chill out and don't play the game I'm gonna run ahead of time. I might run it like maybe 10 or 15 minutes or like warm up a little bit before I do a run or like on during an event. But I always find that like if I'm practicing a run before I go to do it, I'm gonna shit the bed. I'm just gonna completely mess up and not I'll be really nervous because I'll be judging myself with my performance before the run. I'll be like, oh, this is a reflection of like my run during the event, and I don't do that unless it's like a trick or a manip I need to like practice. So like when I did no delivery for Fright Fatales, I practiced the money duping thing just to make sure like I still had it and I knew how much money I was gonna get and stuff. But other than that, like I don't play games before I'm supposed to run them. But like for actually running an event, I have a lot of before rituals. I really like before I have to go do a whole shift or like after a shift, nothing is better than taking a hot bath and drinking a beer. I'm gonna be real with you. Like to decompress afterwards or like prepare myself for something that's gonna happen the next day. Like there's just like nothing better. And then like I think like during events, I don't know, I just kind of go with the flow and let things happen. I don't think there's a lot that I do during events that I feel like I always do or that I need to do. I think the one thing is always make sure I'm caffeinated because if I don't caffeinate, I'm probably gonna like take someone else to a parking lot and try to fight them or something.
Oh no.
It's the parking lot thing is a huge meme. But yeah, I think like during events, I don't think I have anything I really do, but like there's always stuff like before or after events that I'm just like I do to prepare and then I do to wind down. But like during the events, I always just go with the flow. I find myself the more I try to do the same things, or I always have a thing that I do, the more stressed I feel and the more focused I feel, or unfocused, I guess I should say. I feel because then I'm kind of worried about like doing the same things I always try to do, and then oh, if it doesn't work that way, then like what do I do?
Yeah. Well, it's been absolutely fantastic having you. Where can people find you if they want to find you?
I don't stream on Twitch very often. I hope to change that later this year. I say every year. But you know how it be. I'm on Twitch at twitch.tv/Dragorin, DRAGO, capital R, the number one in. Same on Twitter. on DragoRun on Twitter. I shit post, gonna be real with you. I don't really do a lot of interesting posting on Twitter. Sometimes I'll tweet speedrunning stuff or things I'm involved in. Mostly just posting 420 screenshots and just silly Final Fantasy memes I find. I'm on Discord, Varin, #5963. It's also on my speedrun.com profile, if anybody ever forgets, which is under the same name, Dragarman. There's a couple organizations I'm involved with, if anybody would like to check them out. If you're interested in an all-women speedrunning community, Games Done Quick has something called Frame Fatales. I am a producer for the events, and I am also one of the Discord moderators. Hit us up on Twitter at Frame Fatales, or you can, I believe the email for Frame Fatales is just framefatales@gamesdonequick.com. Email us, get an invite to the Discord, join us for our events. Frost Fatales is coming up at the end of February, which will be, actually, it'll be past by the time this comes out. So actually, go watch the VODs for Frost Fatales because it'll already be done. Haha. Also, we're both a part of Lady Arcaders, which I think is really cool. We both do some really cool work there. So if you'd like to come interact with me and Abby over there, we have a website. I think it's just ladyarcaders.com.
Yep.
I'm gonna double check. Yep, it is ladyarcaders.com. We have links to our Twitch, our public Discord, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., etc. Come check us out over there. What else? There was one other thing I wanted to plug. Speed Stuff for Charity. I work on an event called Speed Stuff for Charity, which is a bunch of idiots who raise money for charity for fun. We do events every Labor Day in September, U.S. holiday.
Also Canadian holiday.
Is it also a Canadian holiday? I thought it was just U.S. holiday.
Yep.
Huh. The more you know, kids, the more you know. But I do a lot of work over there. We put together really banging schedules. Our last event had a bid war between 2 different randomizers for our closers. We're unhinged. Please come hang out with us. I believe we're just SS4C everywhere. Speed Stuff 4, like the number 4, not the word 4. But I mostly just do speedrunning event stuff. I don't do a lot of my own stuff. So I always try to plug things that I'm in instead. Come hang out with me and come be my friend, please. Ooh.
Very, very fair. And I'd like to thank you all for listening, and we will see you all next time.